Welcome to Finance PK. My name is Phil. The goal of this channel is to help you beginning investors, especially those of you just getting started, maybe you're high school or college age, just getting started working, making some money. You want to get started investing. You're just not sure how. You're not sure if you have that confidence. The goal of this channel is to help you build that confidence and get started with successful investing. And so now this channel is also for you if you're a little bit older. So maybe you're in your 30s or 40s like me, and you wish you would have got started younger. You wish you would have taken those steps earlier and you want to build that confidence now. This channel is also for you. So I've talked about previous videos, the compound interest, taking those first few steps, setting up for successful investing in the Roth IRA. In this video, I want to talk about some specific index funds and stocks to consider to make kind of that magic number. Like I said, you want to aim for about 10 to 15% per year to double your investment every 4 to 7 years approximately, and over time to build that wealth. And so I'm going to talk about some specific index funds and some specific stocks to consider. Now, before I get into that, I want to preface this with, this isn't financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor. I'm just giving some options for you to consider. And you can do your own research and look at how much they're making. And I'll tell you specifically how much they're making, give you some specific names. And some of these I've invested in myself and seen those gains. And so I want to talk about a couple index funds, a few different index funds. And also I want to talk about some very famous and successful tech funds that are also index funds, but they're specific tech funds. And then I want to talk about some specific stocks, companies that you've heard of that you can invest in. And so again, there's volatility with everything. There's risk with everything. These ones have made consistent gains over time. The first are some index funds. Now, in a previous video, I talked about the difference between index funds and stocks. And so index funds really are kind of a basket of stocks, several companies, maybe up to 500 companies. And that's exactly these few that I want to talk about. They're S&P index funds. And so one is it's actually an ETF called VOO, and that's the Vanguard fund that tracks the index, all the top 500 companies. So companies like NVIDIA, Microsoft, Alphabet, which is Google, Berkshire Hathaway, right? To name a few, 500 companies. That one has consistently made over the last 5 years, upwards of 15 to 20% over the last 5 years. Over the last 80 years, the S&P 500 has made about 10% per year. So this fund with Vanguard hasn't existed for 80 years as such, but it tracks that same index. A similar fund that's to VOO is called VTI, and that's actually an ETF. There's also a fund that's very similar to an ETF that you can also buy, but this is the ETF version of that. Now you can really buy the same one with just about any company, with any brokerage firm, same type of S&P 500 index fund. And so this one's called VTI. It tracks all of the companies sold, right? Not just the top 500. Next, I want to talk about a couple tech funds. One is with the company Invesco, QQQ, and that has returned at least 15% over the last 5 years. I think it's a total of 300 companies. I think it might even be more than that. The QQQ, so names like NVIDIA, like Microsoft, right? To name a few of the top tech companies. There's a similar fund with Vanguard called VGT, and I'll put the links below that you can check out. Again, a tech fund that's made more than 15% per year. And so you're doubling and tripling your money every 4 to 6 years. There also are several stocks I want you to look at, and you could research. If you bought these individual stocks, you potentially open yourself up to more volatility. So that's why I recommend index funds to start. But there are stocks that have exceeded that 10% goal over the last 15 and 20 and really 40 years. Stocks like Apple, stocks like Costco, stocks like Amazon, stocks like Berkshire Hathaway, right, which is the Warren Buffett holding company, which is several companies. So several stocks that you could also buy. Now those stocks are also in those aforementioned index funds. But if you just invested in those index funds and some of those stocks, again, there's some volatility. There's always risk. And this is not financial advice. It's something for you to consider investing in. And some of these I've invested in myself and seen those returns upwards of 10 to 15 to 20% per year. And if you do that over time, you just let the wealth compound and basically just sit back and let the compounding do its work and let the wealth grow. So some things for you to consider as far as index funds and stocks. I'll put some information and links below and have more information. See you next time.